All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, we were not able to record it. Can you see my screen again? Can you thumbs up if you can see my screen? Because I removed it. So this afternoon, we will be talking about the revivalist architecture in colonial and post-colonial America. Our discussion points: revivalist architecture, neoclassicism, Gothic revival, and Beaux Arts eclecticism. It's going to be a short discussion because well, technically, this is a very broad era. Revivalist architecture is a very broad era, and it happened during the 19th century. I think around the time, a little later, after the Industrial Revolution, isa siya sa nag-spark, di ba, ng Renaissance movement. Isa si Industrial Revolution sa nag-spark ng Renaissance movement natin. And it's actually one, again, na nag-spark or nag-inspire na magkaroon ng revivalist movement. Now, we know from our Renaissance discussion that it means rebirth, and now we want to revive something. So here are our guide questions for today. What is the goal of the revivalist movement? What are the common revivalist movements? What is the relationship of these movements to modern day architecture? We were able to answer already. Guide question B, the 3-1 here. The three movements that we're going to be discussing today. So keep in mind yung mga questions natin that are posted here. We have to be able to answer that later on. So revivalist architecture, it happened somewhere in the United States, mostly in Virginia, but it also sparked and happened somewhere in Europe. You may relate this to the Renaissance movement, but it's a little more different. Kasi during the Renaissance, we wanted it to look like what it looked like before, what it looked like during the classical era. Your Greco-Roman era. During a Renaissance period, you want things to look like that. Na parang you want to, parang gusto mo ng throwback. Kasi everything was instantly done. Everything was done quicker, more efficiently. Parang for them, part of the personalization or part ng character ng building structures were lost, even their arts. Remember, Renaissance not only happened for architecture, it's an era that happened during the Elizabethan times, Queen Elizabeth I, kasi they wanted to experience yung, ang pangit ng comparison, pero yeah, they wanted to experience yung golden age nila during the Greco-Roman period. So, gusto nilang ibalik yon, and by doing so, they wanted their buildings, their structures, their art to reflect kung ano yung nagawa na nung mga nauna. 'Di ba? Binalik natin yung mga elements of our buildings, of our designs, from the classical Greco-Roman period to the Renaissance era. Guys, pag nagjo-join kayo ng late, nadidistract ako, sorry. So I only see a lot of 2A today. Where are my 2D class? Sabihin niyo sa classmate niyo pag di sila umattend ng class, bahala sila sa essay number 2 nila. Anyway, let's just admit those who are trying to get in our meeting room. Sorry, I have to cut this sentiment, kasi the reason why I start on time and I end on time is because I respect your time. If you can't be in class on time, at least wag naman yung, 'di ba, every 2 minutes may umi-enter sa Zoom natin. Anyway, moving forward, revivalist architecture happened because of the same reason. So, ito namang revivalist movement is very specific na to the building side architecture. Hindi na siya all-encompassing like during the Renaissance, even your music, even your art. So, the revivalist architecture was focused mainly on buildings and architecture. Can I see the hands of those who were in the last seminar nung nag-talk si Architect Hasegawa? Andrew Hasegawa? Can I see those hands? Who were those last Sunday. Was it last Sunday? Can you raise your hand if you were present during Architect Hasegawa's talk? Wala? Walang umattend sa atin? Yeah, Janela, Mayan. Don't lower your hands yet. Vivian, Mayan, Janela. Only the three of you? Ha? Okay, so ang talk ni Architect Hasegawa, Andy Hasegawa, was focused on architecture for government capitals, or if you remember, it's the architecture for democracy. His title was Capitolio, if I remember it correctly. And it's because seat of power siya ng government. It had to look something stable, sturdy. Paano ba natin siya i-describe? Can you give me descriptions? Can you give me descriptions on how you think Capitol buildings should look like?
For me po,
Yes, Janetta.
ma'am, for me po, ano rin po yung, as a, ano nga rin po, a capital, which is, ano po siya, formal po siya. Yung design niya po for me is classical din po.
Classical.
Yung goods na rin po yung pagka neo-classical niya po na using columns, ganun nga po. Kasi, di ba nga po yung democracy is from the ancient Greek po, na which is ang design po niya is puro columns, ganun po. Yan po.
Democratos, di ba? Democracy, di ba? So, thank you, Janela. Thank you for that. Tama naman. It has to look formal. It has to be, what we call this? It has to exude power. It has to look like it's able to, yeah. Yes, Janela, sorry. Naka-raise babahan mo. Let me just lower your hand for a while. Yan. Sorry. Thank you. So, neoclassicism. What is neoclassicism? It's a revival of architecture, sorry for the typo, revival of architectural style using Greek and Roman orders as decorative motifs. Simple and with geometric forms, dramatic use of columns, shallow relief on facades, and it's a typical style of U.S. government buildings. As we've said, government buildings, sabi nga ni Janela, it has to look formal. Sabi ko, it has to look stable, sturdy, yung may makakapitan. Kasi it has to exude the impression of power. It has to exude the impression na, alam niyo yun, na hindi weak yung building mo, hindi siya flimsy. It has to look sturdy at all costs. Kasi, well, Capitol building siya, di ba? Seat of power siya, government building siya. So, ginamit nila, I don't know where and when it was decided na ang gagamitin natin ay Greco-Roman influences. Pero yeah, dahil nga si Greek and si Roman order were the ones that were built massively on scale, sila yung naging inspiration on doing or making designs or plans for our government buildings or our capital buildings. Sorry for the background noise. Sabi mo wag sila maingay. Ang ingay nila. Anyway, I'd like you to focus your attention to the photo flashed on your screen. What can you say about the U.S. Capitol building or Capitol Hall in Washington, D.C. District of Columbia? What can you say about the building? In terms of design elements that you're seeing in the facade, anong nakikita nyo?
Very prominent po yung size. Tapos yung columns po parang napaka-prominent din po sa
Prominent yung size and prominent yung columns. Look at how massive it is. Diba? I want you to understand na neoclassicism wanted also to focus on being the center or the parang fundamental design ng mga government buildings. It's because of the size, number one. Tama si Paolo, yung use ng columns natin, it's more prominent, it's more dramatic, it's more, uy, parang lahat ng corner ko may column. 'Di ba? You see my pointer? You have columns here, actual columns, real columns. You have columns that are relief on the walls here. You have columns in your dome. You have columns here pa, oh. 'Di ba? Again, one of the elements of the Greco-Roman architecture is balance, order. Tulad ng ginawa natin ng Renaissance, if hahatiin ko tong building na to sa gitna, look at the pointer, natin siya sa gitna, dapat pala nilagyan ko siya ng line. Hinati natin siya sa gitna. What you see on this side is also what you see on this side. 'Di ba? How many columns? 1, 2, 3, 4. How many columns here? 1, 2, 3, 4 din. Dito din. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Dito din. 'Di ba? So, meron siyang gustong i-achieve na look. And from the looks of it, hindi naman siya mukhang Greek architecture, 'di ba? Mukha ba siyang Greek architecture? On its own? Mukha ba siyang Greek architecture lang o mukha siyang Roman architecture lang? Mukha ba siyang Renaissance architecture? I think kasi during the revivalist era, yes, Paolo, you were going to say something.
Napindot ko na po Miss Space.
Ayun, sorry, sige. So, I think during this time, hindi nila gustong mag-build for the sake of building na katulad nung images or structures na meron tayo noon. They wanted to build for the future. Hindi nila tinry eh. They didn't even try to make it look old. 'Di ba? Pero they wanted it to exude, again, yung feeling ng power, sturdiness, stability, yung feeling ng formality, 'di ba? So, andyan siya. So, let's go. Next structure. U.S. Capitol building inside, the interiors. What can you say? Anyone? What can you say about the inside? What element of architecture na na-discuss na natin yung nakikita niyo sa loob? Sige, let's call on someone. Let's call on someone. Let's try Ivy. Ivy, good afternoon. Ivy. Is she not here? Let's try Evita Manansala from 2A. Evita. Yes. Evita, what can you see or what elements of architecture
Yes po, ma'am.
can you see sa interior natin for the Capitol building?
Ma'am, arches po, ma'am.
Arches po, ma'am. Yes, number
Tas may
one, arches.
colonnades.
Naka-vault siya. And meron siyang columnation, no? Anong klaseng capital ito? Is this your Doric order? Is this your Ionic order? Or is this your Corinthian capital? Anyone else? Let's try someone from 2D. 2D, you're not complete today, ah. Parang wala ako nakikitang 2D today. Ilang beses ko nang sinabi, ah. Let's try Rodney. Good afternoon, Rodney. Hello, Rodney.
Good afternoon po.
Good afternoon. Can you turn on your camera so we can see you? Ha? Rodney? Hello?
Ah,
Yon.
hello po, ma'am.
Good. Good morning, Rodney. Rodney, what kind of capital column ito or order ito?
Ionic po, ma'am.
Sure ka?
Hindi.
Hindi po. Call a friend ka? Hindi yan ionic order. Merong acanthus leaves, oh. Ano yan?
Tawagin ko
Tatlo-
po, ma'am, si Derson po.
Tawagin mo sino?
Si Derson po.
Sige. Ay, si Janela naka-raise ng hand. Janela, anong klaseng column detail yan? Or
Ano
column
po?
order?
Corinthians po. Ay, Corinthian.
Oh, yes naman po. Tama naman. Ibig ko sabihin na thank you, Janela. Ibig ko sabihin, these are elements that we've already seen before. Now, the difference is we're not even trying to make it look old. We're just building. We're just building with respect to those ones. So another type of neoclassical building in the United States is the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. Again, what elements do you see? Isa-isayin nga natin. What are these? How do you call this triangle? Yes, Joshua Sarabia. Are you related to Sarabia Opticals? Joshua?
Hello po, ma'am.
Yes. Are you related to
Pediments po.
Vivian Sarabia?
Hindi po, ma'am.
Pediment po. Ano yung nasa loob, Josh? Yung mga relief sa loob, anong tawag? Joshua? Call a friend ka na.
Si Paolo na lang po.
Paolo Postor. Yes, Paolo, tinawag ka ng best friend mo. How do you call the carvings inside the pendentive?
Oh my gosh. Hindi po ako sure, ma'am. Ito po. Hindi ko po sure, ma'am.
Hindi ko po sure. Ay, sorry, hindi yan pendentive pala. It's sorry, pediment. Pediment,
Ma'am,
not a pendentive.
Pediments.
Ano yung nasa loob ng pediment?
Hindi ko po alam, ma'am.
Starts with the letter T.
T.
T?
T?
Oo nga, T nga, ang kulit.
Wait,
Paolo,
ma'am. Wait, ma'am.
friend.
Give me 5 more seconds.
Sige, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Talaga, hindi ko alam talaga, ma'am.
The space
Call a
inside the
friend,
pediment.
ma'am.
Sige, call a friend ka na. Sabihin ko na sana. Call a friend ka na. Go.
Sige po, ma'am. Si Pitts po,
Sino?
ma'am. Si Pitts po, ma'am.
Pets, Jerome Binarao. MVP for the win. Anong tawag sa loob ng pendentive? Review na lang to. Ano to? Ayaw ni Pitsain sagutin. To not waste your time further. Oy, may nagtaas ng kamay. Mayan raised her hand first. Sorry, Dairon. Mayan.
Ma'am, I don't know po if tama yung pronunciation ko, pero timpanum po.
Yes,
Or timpanum.
Tempanum. Ano tong nasa ilalim? Ano yung nasa ilalim? May idea ka, Mayan? Ano yung nasa ilalim ng pediment?
Yung nasa ilalim po,
This one.
yung
This one.
lintel po.
No, this is your freeze, di ba? Your freeze has the... Am I correct? Freeze yung tawag sa kanya. Meron siyang triglyph and yung metopy. Metopy yung itlog. Yung mukhang itlog. Triglyph yung tatlo. Anyway, so these are your Corinthian columns. You see the acanthus leaves. Elevated platform. Again, column reliefs on the side. You see the element of balance. You see the element of order. Tama, di ba? bintana, column, bintana, column, bintana, column. You have your element of order, you have your element of balance, and you have your sturdy gable roof. This is one of the characteristics of your classical Greco-Roman architecture that we are now seeing again in a different setting. This is now in the United States of America. So this is the inside. You have your, what column is this? Makinis and my, what do you call this one? May scroll sa taas. What is this
Ionic
column
po,
order?
ma'am.
Ionic
po,
po, ma'am. Final answer?
Yes po, ma'am.
Ionic
Yes po.
po, ma'am. Hindi siya Doric order.
Di po, ma'am.
Yes, correct naman. Si Doric order, wala siyang scroll sa taas. Si Ionic ang merong scroll. Acanthus sleeves will be your Corinthian order. Ito yung sinasabi nating triglyphs and metopy. So, moving on, another example of your neoclassical movement in the United States is this infamous, hindi naman siya super famous residence in Virginia, in the United States. Again, they're not trying to build to make it look old. They're just trying to incorporate those that are in the Greco-Roman era. Hindi rin sila sumabay sa Renaissance era. Actually, hindi masyado. Nauna si Renaissance era bago nagkaroon ng revivalist movement in the United States. So, itong mga private residences na to, gusto lang nila ng pakita Meron kasing social class Merong gustong i-project na image, which is these people were probably richer than the average American. Example, inside, you see your arches, you see your arc windows, you see your French windows, you see columns, you see your, anong tawag dyan sa nasa corner ng kisame? How do you call this one? Cornice. You see your cornice again. Diba? So, this is a short discussion on your neoclassical or neoclassicism, which is one of the famous revivalist movement during the 19th century. Next, another one, Gothic revival. This is a revival of the Gothic architecture considered as the only acceptable style for churches in the United States until the 20th century. Identifiable, again, pointed arches, windows, doors, and elements like porches and gable roof. You remember the elements that we have during the Gothic era? Pointed siya. Diba? Mas mataas siya. Mas maliwanag yung interiors. You still see the flying buttresses. You still see the spires. Diba? You still see the towers. Pointed arches. And you still see a little bit reminiscent of your rose windows. Diba? So if you look at this one, would you say that is this Gothic or is this Neo-Gothic? How would I know if it's Gothic revival or if it's really Gothic period? Again, itong mga revivalists, they're not trying to build to make it look old. They're not trying to, hindi siya yung gusto nilang gawin na kamukhang-kamukha nung una. They're building for the now with consideration to what have happened or what have passed by before. Diba? So, etong si Neo-Gothic era, isa siyang, how do we say this? How do we put this into words? Kaya siya ginawang only acceptable church design. Remember, when we were talking about Gothic era, do you remember that I told you guys that it's one of the longest running architectural style na nag-cross sa history natin? Early Christian was short, the Byzantine era was relatively short, but the Gothic era, before the Renaissance one, before Romanesque, it spanned more than how many decades, how many centuries, diba? So this is the Hungarian Parliament building inside. What do you notice? What types of vault do you notice? Or hindi man siya yung mismong vault, meron siyang reminiscent of the vault. You answered boss, di ba? These are the bosses of your ribbed vault. Hindi man siya super ribbed vault. Hindi naman talaga siya ribbed vault to begin with. Pero they wanted to incorporate that element of Gothic architecture into the Neo-Gothic movement. So this is it now. And they still have your pointed arches. Although dito hindi siya super kita, pero pointed yung arches na yan. Pointed yan, hindi siya rounded. Pointed arches, again. And they incorporated other types of architectural movement and styles. Hindi lang basta si Gothic. 'Di ba? Hindi naman masyadong golden si Gothic, 'di ba? Gold motif were used primarily during the Baroque and Rococo period, not even the Renaissance. Hindi nga ganun kadami yun during that time. So what can you say about the interior of this building? Let's try from 2D. I think it's mostly 2A na nakikita ko sa unahan. Let's try someone from 2D. Vivian. Bakit wala yung mga estudyante natin from 2D? Nasaan sila? Vivian, are you still with us? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon po, ma'am.
Yes. Ano masasabi mo sa nasa loob na structure? Vivian? Hello?
Ma'am, may arches pa din po.
Ha?
May arches pa din po.
May arches pa din. Yes, oo. And it's not just Gothic, Remember, hindi lang siya super kung ano yung Gothic influence natin. Hindi naman tayo ganun kadami gumamit ng balustrades during the Gothic era, remember? So, it's a mix actually of a lot of things. Pero, the exterior, it shouts Gothic to you. Bakit? Ang daming pointed niya, no? Pag patusok, it's Gothic, Wala kang makikitang ganito na Romanesque church or Romanesque building for that matter. Palace of Westminster, Big Ben, Gothic Revival, one of the famous neo-Gothic structures that we have. Again, may towers na. And it's not just applied to churches, Remember during the Gothic era, it was mostly churches that we were discussing. Right now, we're talking about government civic buildings, not just in the United States, also in the United Kingdom. This is in London, Westminster Abbey, Big Ben. This is just across or just along the banks of River Thames. So you still see the spires, you still see the towers, although it's not super, let's say, super Gothic in a way na andyan lahat ng element niya, the flying buttresses. Hindi naman kailangan lahat ng element niya. Pero we can say that it's inspired by the Gothic era, the Gothic movement of architecture, or the Gothic character because of the pointed spires, 'di ba? And because of the overall design peg niya, even the colors, even the height of the tower, 'di ba? It's not built para magmukhang luma. It's built for the present. Again, it's built to exude power, exude control and authority kasi this is one of the government buildings of the United Kingdom. You drive a little bit here, you go to Westminster Abbey, the church, and you drive a little bit there, you reach Buckingham Palace. 'Di ba? If you drive closer here on this side, tawid mo dito, this is the River Thames, itong gilid na side na to. Diniretso mo yan, tumawid ka dito sa street na to. I forgot which street this was. Pero pag tawid mo dyan, you can actually see the Eye of London. Isa siyang malaking roller coaster ride. Which would take you pag dinire-diretso mo pa yung kalsadang yan to Piccadilly Square. If you ask me if I've been to London, no, I haven't been to London. I just play a lot of video games that took me to London. So, if you're wondering which game, chat nyo na lang later. Pero it's an accurate representation of the map of London. Sorry talaga. Pero I have a friend in the University of Reading, which is a suburb of the United Kingdom. She transferred recently to London, and she told me, Jelly, the game that you suggested, it's an accurate map of London. The building's not so, but the landmarks were all there. Pero times were changing. It's an old video game for PSP anyway. Sorry, gandang intermission na. Palace of Westminster inside. You still see your arches. You still see your windows. You still see your, what are these? Your vaults, your boss, your ribbed vaults, your, ang daming Gothic element, even these arches, oh. Pero remember, keep in mind, hindi naman sila nagbe-build na para magmukha siyang super Gothic. It's a revival of the Gothic movement, yes, but they were using the available materials that they have now. You also have to consider that during this time, nag-progress na rin naman yung level ng construction understanding or ng building understanding nila. They know better. Diba? They can construct better. Sige, moving on. This is the last of the 3 topics that we've listed. I told you it's a very short lecture. So, Beaux Arts and eclecticism. Beaux Arts, ang dami pala nung revivalist, ang dami ng revivalist architecture. There are also vernacular revival, merong Egyptian revival, maraming klase ng revival, but we're just talking about those that are common. Si Beaux Arts revival, it's more neoclassical, symmetric, yes, very eclectic. When we say eclectic, it just means na hindi siya true to the original form. Merong dinagdag sa kanya, merong reflection from a lot of sources, hindi lang iisa. It actually means na hindi ka lang naka-relate or naka-anchor kay neoclassicism, hindi ka lang naka-anchor kay Gothic revival, pero ang dami niyang structure, ang dami niyang elements that these reliefs, these types of structures, these were common during the Baroque era. These kinds of carvings, diba? Baroque and Rococo, columns, neoclassical, of course, and you see a little bit of Renaissance with the overall feel, especially naglagay pa ng maliit na dome here, diba? So it often gives you a massive, elaborate, sorry for the typo, and ostentatious effect. When we say ostentatious, we just want to say na we're showy, mayabang actually, or not mayabang, but it's showy to the point na hindi man over actually, pero yeah, being overly showy. Ganon. Very confident and showy. Architectural characteristics include balustrades, balconies, columns, pilasters, and triangular pediments. Although here, hindi triangular yung pediment niya. I don't even know if this will count as a pediment. Pero again, we're not building based on what was already built. I mean, we're not building to achieve what was already built. We're building based on what was already built with respect to the now, with respect to the progress that we've made during the past few eras, past few decades, lectures that we had. So with that, it's actually the end of our discussion on the revivalist era. I just want to enter something kasi this usually appears sa board exam. I don't know why. It's a planning concept, but this is discussed in the HOA, in the HOA2 discussion. So, City Beautiful movement, kasi kasabayan niya yung mga revivalist movements eh. City Beautiful movement, it started with Daniel Burnham, an architect and an urban planner. It's an urban planning approach characterized by monumentally placed buildings, grand promenades, plazas, sculpture, parkways, and many more. What we mean by City Beautiful movement is that gusto lang talaga ni Daniel Burnham na maganda yung city. And by doing so, ano ba yung magpapaganda sa city? Walkways, parks, malalaking buildings, go big or go home ang motto ni Daniel Burnham. So, he designed the plan for, Daniel Burnham designed the plan for, let me just get my laptop. He designed the plan for Chicago, yung master plan for Chicago. Also, Daniel Burnham designed, Daniel Burnham also designed 2 cities in the Philippines. Can you tell me which cities he designed? Anyone? May 2 city na dinesign si Yes, Joshua.
Yung isa lang po yung alam ko, ma'am.
Ano?
Yung sa Baguio City po.
Baguio City. Ronnie?
Yung ang alam ko po, ma'am, supposedly po, yung gagawin po na bagong Manila kaso hindi po natuloy. And yung
Correct.
Burnham Park.
Yes. So, 2 yung city na pinlan niya. Thank you, Joshua and Rodney. So, he planned the master plan for Baguio City. He also planned the master plan for Manila City with Rizal Statue as kilometer 0. kung may makikita kayo mga kilometer markers na may number, it's referenced from how long it is from the Rizal Park. He designed the city of Manila with radial roads and circumferential roads in mind, with the focus on Rizal Park as its center, as it radiates papalabas. And that's one. Baguio, yeah, of course, Baguio. You know Burnham Park, so you know it's Daniel Burnham. This is an example of City Beautiful movement. You have a central, ang pangit ng quality ng photo. But I think I'll send you na lang via messenger the plans that he did for Chicago, Manila, and Baguio. So, one of the structures by Daniel Burnham. And with that, I told you it's a short discussion, which is why I wanted, we just merged the two classes together. So recap, colonial and post-colonial architecture in America. I will give you readings on this one, because we just discussed the key factors of the revivalist movement. You know, the revivalist movement, same reason with Renaissance movement na dahil ang dami ng instant everything. They wanted to have a sense of control and a sense of personalization with their designs. They wanted their buildings, their structures to have more character, which is why they incorporated a lot from the previous architectural characters that we have discussed. Remember, hindi lang pag sinabi nating neoclassical yung style niya, it's all classical orders, the Greco-Roman architecture. It's not. Ang dami nilang minash up. It's a mash up actually. So, colonial and post-colonial architecture in America is a revival of the previous styles, Greek to Gothic, neoclassicism, Gothic revival or neo-Gothic, and the Beaux Arts eclecticism, comma yan, hindi yan colon, and the City Beautiful movement by Daniel Burnham. So for next week, I want you to study on modern architecture, group presentation on modern architecture. Next group, please contact me. I think group 3 or 4? 3, no? Correct? 2A, 2D, group 3? Because
Yes,
our first group discussed St. Peter's, the second one discussed the Rococo and Baroque. So this one, for the modern architecture, I need group 3 to discuss. Group presentation will be next Wednesday for 2A and next Saturday for 2D. So essay number 2 to be submitted before next meeting. Your topic for the next essay will be the discussion that we have discussed today. You may use other references. Of course, you have to look for references and add it to your essay. One-page essay is fine, but you have to give me your references. I would ask for 5 pages, pero that's too much for your level. So, one-page essay, and you have to discuss on which revivalism or which revivalist movement can you relate most, or sino yung dapat na revivalist movement na mas tumagal sana? Or ano yung tingin yung best among those revivalists? Don't be confined with the revivalist movement that we discussed today. Those are only the 3 common or the 3 most prominent during that era. Marami pang iba. You can look up on that and you can share your knowledge and then give it to me before next meeting with consideration to 2A. 2A can submit to me by Saturday. So we all have a fair 1-week timeline for this one. So with that, we're ending our discussion. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask now. Any questions so far? Guys? Any questions so far? Rodney, question.
Ma'am, tanong lang po namin, ano po ma'am yung essay number 1 po?
Ha?
Ano po ma'am yung essay number 1 po? Kung yung gagawin po ngayon yung essay number 2.
We already did the essay number 1. It's via Google Forms before, di ba? The 3 architectural movements.
Yun pa lang po.
Yeah, that's your essay number 1. This is your essay number 2. The final essay will be for your finals. Before your final, submit it to me before your final exam. Any more questions? Rodney, did I answer your question?
Thank you po, ma'am. Opo, thank you po, ma'am.
Ma'am, makukuha na po ba namin score namin sa midterms? Paano kung ayoko, Ira? Actually, Ira, hindi ko pa tapos checkan, sorry. So, hindi ko pa tapos checkan, Ira, to be fair. Hindi ko pa siya na-check lahat. And I'm looking forward to this long weekend next week para i-check siya. Mayan? Question, Mayan.
Ma'am, clarify ko lang po yung sa page po nung sa essay number 2 po. Limited to 1 page lang po ba siya? Parang maximum of 1 page po.
One page. Minimum 1 page. You can always
Okay.
exceed, but it's up to you. Pero ayoko magdikta kasi baka mamaya, ang ayaw ko lang naman is 1 page na nga lang hiningi ko, binigyan niyo pa ako ng half page. Pero you know what? As long as you get your points across, I don't have any problem. Just make sure na mababasa natin siya correctly. Yun lang. Any more question? Rhoda.
Ma'am, tatanong lang po kung ano po yung size ng paper na gagamitin.
Hindi ko naman siya ipiprint. So, e-file lang naman isasubmit niya sa akin. Pero, thank you so much for asking. For it to be uniform, just A4, narrow margins. Font size 12, font, bahala kayo, basta hindi Comic Sans. Can you not use Comic Sans? Please don't use Comic Sans on your papers. Any more questions before we end? Joshua.
Ma'am, yung sa may about po sa reporting po ng modern po. Tanong lang po namin kung meron, yung sa may report po kung sakop po ba lahat ng modern architecture po? Or may specific topic lang po ba kayong hinahanap?
Actually, maiksi lang yung modern architecture. Maybe give me a draft of your presentation on Monday so we can check together. Pero bigyan din kita ng scope. If I don't give it to you by
Sige po.
tomorrow
Si
evening,
Angelic po yung reader namin, ma'am.
Angelic Pineda. All right. If I don't give it to you by tomorrow, can you please follow up? Pero, yeah. Naka-record pa pala tayo, my God. Anyway, let it be. So, yun lang naman, part of modern. Hindi naman lahat. Actually, Joshua, maiksi lang yung modern architecture. If you're thinking modern as in modern architecture, yung nakikita natin today, it's not. Modern architecture started when we started to depart from the ideas of those that went before us, di ba? We discussed a lot of architectural movement and we discussed kung paano siya ginagaya pa ulit-ulit. So, when we learned how to depart from those ideas, dun tayo nagkaroon ng modern. Hindi yung until today, it's not. Meron na nga tayong postmodern, di ba? Yung mga deconstructivism, meron tayong contemporary architecture, marami. So, it's a very short one, Josh. Don't worry. Any more questions before we end our meeting and you can have your weekend? Questions, comments, suggestions? Can you turn on your camera? I just want to take a screenshot. For a while lang. Tas smile lang kayo. 1 page lang naman tayo. And I want to know why my 2D class are not present today. Please remind your classmates, those who are not here today, should let me know why. Explain why they're not here. Hindi pa kita tapos na yung midterms, deserve na natin magpahinga. May Sunday tayo for that. Diba? So everyone, just turn on your cameras for a while so we can take a photo together. And I'm just waiting for a few more. Edralyn, Janella, Ira, Marielle, Alfred, Ivy, Crisel, Julian, Leslie, Jeliza. Please turn on your cams. Let's take a photo together. 1, 2, Ivy, Julian, Leslie, Jeliza. All right. 1, 2, 3. Biggest smile. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I'll be sending the photo to our group chat. I will be needing your photos. So I know who came on class today. PowerPoint will be sent to you as well. So have a good weekend, everyone. Our discussion today was short, pero I will follow up next week on this one kasi it's a really long topic, but this is an intro to it, like what we did during the Renaissance discussion. So have a nice weekend, everyone, and goodbye.
Bye po, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye po.